think the main thing that I emphasize over and over and over again is you're normal.
Mm.
You're normal, right? No matter what you're coming to me with, low libido or, some kind of communication issue, it's normal. You're normal. And I think that just kind of taking that shame away and knowing this is normal, you're normal is one of the biggest things that I can show to somebody and tell someone. And I think it coming from somebody else is such a big thing as well.
Welcome to the Ready Set Coach podcast, the podcast for coaches by coaches, just like our community.
We're here for real talk on what it takes to thrive in the coaching world, plus an exclusive behind the scenes look at coaches making it happen.
Are you ready, Lex?
I'm Set M.
Let's coach. Welcome back to the Ready Set Coach podcast. I am so excited today. I have an incredible guest with us, one of our Ready Set Coach insiders. Their name is Grace, and they are the founder of Sex Ed with Byrd. And we are just so excited to have you on the show. So, Grace, welcome to the Ready Set Coach podcast.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited too. I'm a big fan.
Oh, well, it's always fun, Lexi and I do this together. So it's always fun, we're like Kelly Ripa and, replacing our co-hosts with these incredible coaches that we have within the community. But I love that you are a sex ed coach. We definitely have we have different variations of intimacy coaches or pleasure coaches within the community. And I love that about the coaching industry too, that there are so many variations of what you can learn about and be taught. You could be taught about orgasm if you want. You could be taught about how to have sex. I think that's the cool thing about the industry. So I want to know about you. And I also have to warn our listeners, I'm super pregnant. So if I'm breathing hard, I apologize for that. But Grace, how did you get into the sex ed world?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I went to school for something completely different. I was planning on being an environmental studies teacher, which is complete yeah,
Yeah.
completely different. Um, but growing up, obviously kind of how sex ed is in this country, it was pretty bad. And especially wasn't diverse. And so when I was growing up, I was lucky enough to grow up in a generation where I could look things up online and it could be accurate sex education, like Planned Parenthood. And so, knowing that information and looking it up myself and actually having access to accurate information was really a good thing for me, especially being the first of my friends who dated. And so, growing up, when they had questions, they would kind of come to me and I would actually be able to give them accurate information. Um, and I kind of loved that. It was really fun for me. And so as I kind of graduated from college, I realized I wanted to work from home. I wanted to be my own boss and not kind of go into the school system. And so I decided to start my own sex education coaching business.
I love that. And you're so right about our education and sex ed education. I don't even think they included sex ed in my high school.
Oh, wow.
They were very focused on mental health at the time.
Oh,
And eating disorders more so than
okay.
sex ed.
That's like kind of uncommon too, to even focus on that. So,
I know it's very avant-garde, but also I think sex was a very taboo subject. And even to today, you're absolutely right. Your generation is so fortunate that it has, we had Google, but Google was a lot rougher back
yeah.
then than it is now. And actually hosted an event last night you would have loved with a founder of a sex wellness company called Unbound Babes.
Oh, uh-huh.
And um, one of the girls who was on the call was talking about, she's like, I learned everything I know about sex and having babies on TikTok.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was like, that's so sad that we can't, even as women or individuals, come together and have conversations. Like you think of the red tent days, or everything was very oral history and passed down one person to another. And there's so many silos that people live in. So there is this beauty of the internet creating more accessibility to people wherever they are in whatever capacity. And I also love that you have this like teaching aspect to you and this kind of I want to say like a mother hen aspect to you where your chickadees can come to you and ask you questions and feel safe with receiving the answers. So my question for you, Grace, is how do you disseminate this information to your customers?
I like what you said about kind of the mother hen
Mhm.
aspect of it. That gives me feelings of like empathy, shame-free, judgment-free space. And I think that's kind of the difference between a sex therapist and a sex coach is there's not that hierarchy. There's not that, oh, we're going to diagnose you in the DSM and, and cover through insurance. It's more of a collaborative approach towards your goals. It's more open. You can kind of have that empathy. You can share things that will relate to your clients. And I think that that's kind of important is sharing things that relate when in the therapy space, you don't get that. And it's a lot less personal. And so, I think that that's kind of the plus of coaching rather than sex therapy or, an OBGYN or something like that.
Oh my God. You learn nothing at an OBGYN. You really
Yeah.
just get on the pill and that's it. The best
Yeah.
of luck to you out there. What can you share with some examples of your clients and what type of challenges or struggles they're coming to you with to and where they need support coaching?
Yeah. So I see individuals and I see couples.
Hmm.
And I think I think the main thing that I emphasize over and over and over again is you're normal.
Mm.
You're normal, right? No matter what you're coming to me with, low libido or, some kind of communication issue, it's normal. You're normal. And I think that just kind of taking that shame away and knowing this is normal, you're normal is one of the biggest things that I can show to somebody and tell someone. And I think it coming from somebody else is such a big thing as well. Um, and, clients come to me with a whole bunch of things. I think some of the biggest things are communication issues,
Mm.
wanting to have healthier communication. Whether that's kind of, I see clients, before they're getting married and they have no kind of big issues yet and they just want to kind of, dot all their I's and cross their T's before marriage. And I see some others where they're on the brink of divorce. And I think
Mm.
kind of wherever you are in that spectrum, healthier communication is always important. And then, low libido issues and things like that as well.
It's so important. And I know in the Catholic Church, they do something called pre-cana, have you heard of that before? Where it's
I
kind of like
haven't.
it's the priest, which cracks me up that a priest is guiding people through this, but it's leading them through finances and it's leading them through just getting them on the same
Mm,
page about things. And to your point, I think there's so many things with sexuality, especially dependent where they are in experience, if they're never had sex or if they've had sex before, um, that need to be communicated and a lot of us have a lot of shame that needs to be shed in our learning,
yeah.
especially with religious upbringings or particular types of parenting where I swear half my clients, like we talk about their own shame. So I
Yeah.
think sexual energy is a big tie into to coaching and even like succeeding in life, like being comfortable sexually and being comfortable in body and self is really impactful for where you can be as an individual to soar.
Yeah. One thing I think about and I say is if you can talk about your sex life, your needs, your desires, what you want in bed, which is really scary and vulnerable,
Totally.
you can set your price with your clients. You can ask
Yes.
for that raise. You can, set that boundary, whatever it is, because once you get that really hard, vulnerable thing and you're able to talk about that openly, you're able to talk about anything, and so I think it truly does relate to coaching or any kind of
Yes.
job or situation.
If you're listening to this show and not in the Ready Set Coach community, what are you doing?
Seriously, our members have found clients, collaborators, accountability buddies, and best friends inside our community. It's super simple to apply. Hit pause and visit ReadySetCoachCommunity.com today.
See you inside. Cheers.
Yeah, that confidence, that inner confidence of self and worth and self-love and being able to approach your needs appropriately. Which I'm curious, have you ever read the book Pussy, A Reclamation?
I haven't, no.
So that was a book. I was in a coaching program and she had us read this book, and I really love to hear your thoughts on it. This individual who wrote the book, her name is Mama Gina. She hosts like seminars all across the world. She has workshops and programs and whatnot. But one of the things she talks about, which is kind of interesting, she talks about taking, like, I don't even know if I should say this on this podcast, but I'm going to. Basically, like dabbing yourself with a little bit of your own juice behind your ears every morning for a little bit of confidence. And for me, that was a little too far. I was like, I'm not dabbing anything anywhere, but it was that interesting aspect of like really absorbing yourself. Or, you know, she walks through different exercises of looking in the mirror and appreciation. So I'd be curious, Grace, do you have any exercises or tactics for those coaches listening who might not have that personal confidence of asking for those raises yet, or telling without shaking, telling their client their prices, that could help them kind of get their juices flowing?
I like that. I like that position. I think kind of what I was saying, asking for what you want in the bedroom can
Mhm.
open the doors for anything. And I know for women, especially, who are probably a lot of your listeners, it's hard. You're not supposed to ask for what you want in the bedroom. You're not so in society, you're not supposed to prioritize your pleasure or your needs or your wants or desires. And so even if it starts with by yourself, solo play, or even not even play, it could just be your pleasure, husband or partner, can you take the kids for a little bit and I'm going to have a nice bath or I'm going to have whatever. And so sinking into your pleasure, whatever that means, asking for what you need in the bedroom or beyond the bedroom, I think can be a great first step, especially for women or those who haven't been able to kind of prioritize their pleasure or their needs. I think
So
that,
I think like a daily challenge of creating like a pleasure bubble of sorts,
yeah,
of
yeah,
giving yourself that space to ask for something. It doesn't have to be orgasmic, but being able to say, hey, I'm going to take 30 minutes and take a bath.
yeah,
Can you make sure no one interrupts me during
yeah.
this
Yeah, and it seems like such a small thing, right? But I think
time?
sometimes when you're in the daily grind or you're in a relationship for a while, you forget that, you're just such like in this constant to-do list, constant things to do that you might forget like, oh yeah, let me prioritize my pleasure, my needs, or my wants.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of how you do that in your own life?
Yeah, I think I am very good at setting my boundaries.
Mhm.
Hard.
Really?
I'm chronically ill and I have a very limited energy budget. And I also think it's important to set your boundaries and communicate and be open. And so I set my boundaries pretty hard. Recently, I am waitlist only because
Mhm.
I want to work part-time. And so that's been really exciting. And also, even though I'm having these clients come to me, it's like, no, I'm waitlist only. Like I'm at my limits. I really feel a pressure to take on more clients, but I think it's important to set your boundaries hard. And for me, that's something that I do in work and beyond too.
And also not to burn yourself out. You could have a million clients, but if your pot is drained or your cup is
Mhm.
drained, how are you serving those clients and showing up for
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. It's a great way to look at it.
I think is really important. And you had mentioned I love that boundary of waitlist only too. And I think that's also, it's kind of like dating in a way, letting people know, you're waitlist only. I'm dating, but I'm not committing to anyone at this moment in time. Or I'm
Yeah.
being very selective
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
can be more cognizant of who you take on, make sure that they're the right clients, rather than you don't have to serve everyone and anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important and something that glad to have I'm glad that I kind of had the education and knowledge to set my boundaries, and that's been able
Mhm.
to spill over into work as well. And I
That,
feel really lucky
that
for that.
teacher in you. Can
Yeah.
we also talk before we wrap up today? I want to learn more about sex ed. Sorry, guys, I'm so
No.
burpy. This started to hurt burn. Can you tell me more about sex ed with Byrd and where you got the name?
Yeah. So my slogan is teaching the birds and the bees. And so I kind of love that play on it. I thought that was
Mhm.
kind of funny. And I was actually thinking about this question this morning. How did I exactly think about sex ed with bird? And I can't remember. I can't remember what the actual origin of it is, but
It
yeah.
came to that, but I love that too, and I think there's something to be said about the content that you put out and the way you communicate. It is like the modern sex ed for the modern person versus I think I loved my health teacher. She was such a sweetheart, but it makes me so angry. There's so much stuff that I want to go into sex ed class or I want to go into the health class and be like, I wish you guys learned these three things about your body. So I'm curious about you. Do you have things that if you were given a megaphone and a soapbox that you could talk about for hours on end?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I make sure with my clients I listen more than I talk, but I feel like I could talk forever. Um, I think kind of like what I was saying, you deserve pleasure. Pleasure is your birthright. And so if you're having sex that's not pleasurable, you're not going to want to have that sex. You might have issues with your relationship and resentments and things like that. And so prioritizing your pleasure.
Mhm.
Another thing is de-stressing is one of the best things that you could do for your sex life. If you're stressed or if you're burnt out or if you're angry, which I think is another form of stress, you're not going to be wanting to have sex. You're not going to be enjoying sex. And
Mhm.
I also think learning about your body is really important too, whether that's exploring yourself or kind of seeking out that education, whether on TikTok or the
Yeah,
internet or
right.
whatever it is. If you don't know those pleasure points and kind of know how your body works, you
Mhm.
might be not able to prioritize your pleasure or not be able to communicate what it is that feels good for you. And so I think those things are really important and not taught about in sex ed. We're never taught about where the pleasure points are, you know? So
Like just don't get pregnant or
yeah.
you get pregnant and you're gonna die. And that's it.
Yeah.
Which is that's something that makes me really angry is just how much fear is given to us.
Yeah.
About to your point about like being correlated to pleasure and how there's such a limited understanding of our bodies and like how it works and what is the cervix and why do we have a uterus and how do they tie together and oh you have a period, how does the period play into getting pregnant? And we're just so quick to like medicate sometimes or like be like, oh, you have a bad period, here, just take some pills and you're gonna be
Yeah.
fine,
Mhm.
versus why do you have this bad period? Like
Yeah.
what else is going on there that we're not talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you have the knowledge, you have the tools and the power in a way.
Mm. We hold the power. Well, Grace, I would love to know how can people find out more about you, your wait list, your programs, your content, and be in touch.
Yeah, so my website is Sex Ed with Byrd, and Byrd is Byrd. And then I'm most active on Instagram, which is Sex Ed with Byrd, but the E in sex is removed because, censorship. So,
Yeah.
um, and then I'm pretty reachable wherever on my website. There's my email and contact, and then Instagram, there's DM. You can get into contact with me. Wherever you find me, I'll be there.
You're like, I'll be there. And then I'm curious, what's coming up for you, both personally and professionally? Anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, I think professionally, I'm thinking of a lot of fun workshops in the mix, some free and some paid ones. So that'll be out on all the socials and the website and everywhere. I'll be seeing when those are coming up.
And we'll have to do something for Ready Set Coach too.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
we'll have
Yeah.
to make sure that happens. Well, we are so happy to have you as a guest. And if you have listened to our podcast before, Lexi and I always end our podcast with a terrible song of Ready, Set, Coach. So are you willing to sing with me?
Oh gosh, okay.
All right, guys, we'll see you the next time on the Ready, Set, Coach podcast. All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye. If you're enjoying the Ready, Set, Coach podcast, please leave a review wherever you are listening. For more information about Ready, Set, Coach, visit readysetcoachprogram.com.